Hey guys, it's QuickyBaby and welcome back to World of Tanks, and today's video is going to be all about the turreted British Tier 10 tank destroyer, the FV215b 183. It's got the highest alpha damage in the game, or should I say the joint highest alpha damage with the recently buffed FV405 Stage 2, and the fact that this vehicle next month is going to be removed from sale in World of Tanks. And so if you've ever wanted to get your hands on it, this is your last chance. I'm going to be letting you know everything that you need to know in the upcoming video. And while I'm going to be talking through the FV215b 183 and a little bit of a preview for its replacement, the FV217 Badger, we're going to be checking out Gord Young as he has the perfect game to showcase everything that's special about the FV215b 183mm HESH shells, as we're going to be talking about it with 1750 alpha. So this is one of the oldest vehicles in World of Tanks, and when it first went in, it was completely crazy overpowered because it had these HESH rounds that cost 8,000 credits. It's a big gold noob tank when we think about it, but hilarious at the same time, with 275mm of penetration. This was massively nerfed. A lot of the other things about the vehicle was nerfed. Then they buffed its armor, then they buffed the FV405 Stage 2, so this is kind of the more heavily armored cousin. Is it worth getting? Well, it's kind of an icon of World of Tanks, I think, now, and if you're a collector of vehicles and you're quite close towards it, then definitely make the final push. Now, you might want to know, when is this going to happen? Well, it's going to be happening in update 921. Yeah. I'm not even going to be commentating on these one-shots. You're just going to have to enjoy them while I'm talking through the statistics. So, 921, which is confirmed to be released next month, and it is also, I believe, the last patch of this year. And it's going to have, amongst the FV215b 183 replacement, it's also going to have a new French heavy tank line. It's going to have a new Grand Battles map, and I'm sure the Wargaming are going to throw in a few extra things there. So the FV217 Badger, is it a good tank? Well, I guess the reason why they're replacing this vehicle is because it doesn't really fit into the tech tree. The British non-turreted tank destroyers are kind of high DPM, low flexibility monsters with low alpha damage. Think about the 87, got a great 20-pounder, horrible weak point on top, very unflexible gun. Then you become flexible with the AT-15 and your 20-pounder. It's got low alpha damage, but it's got a monstrous rate of fire, and it becomes a lot more flexible. While it doesn't directly have a turret, it's got great gun traverse, the left, the right, down, up. Yeah, nice flexibility. Then you become the DPM monster, the highest DPM in the game, even though it's at tier 9 in the form of the Tortoise. And the Tortoise is just an utter epic tank just for having the highest DPM in the game. Even the Stridsvagn 103b that came out towards the end of the year, you think that the best sniper in the game might also have the highest DPM. No, that's not the case. The Badger is going to be basically like the Tortoise, but a little bit better. And that's something that the FV215b 183 was never. It's not a Tortoise, not in any way. It's like a heavy tank just with a gigantic gun and isn't quite as flexible as the standard FV215b. Now, what happens if you've already got this vehicle? You might be asking, is it going to be removed from my garage? Well, no, that's not the case. Wargaming have stated that, like they did with the FOSH 155 and like they recently did with the replacement of the FV215b for the Super Conqueror, if you have this tank, it will become a reward vehicle in your garage. That's a pretty cool thing, because that means it's going to be able to use any of your British tank destroyer crews in it without penalty, and also it means that you're going to get increased crew training when you use them, so that's an absolute awesome little perk to have. Now, the Badger that replaces it is still going to be something that you will get. So if you have an FV215b, you just get this for free, and you also get a Badger in your garage as a replacement. So it's kind of getting a whole extra tank for free, 6 million credits worth. That's a pretty good deal if you can get there, and more on that later in the video. So what is the Badger good for? Well, its DPM is actually slightly higher than the Tortoise, but we're talking about it only being higher by 30. When we're talking about a 1% higher DPM, it's not really the biggest of deals, but it will still steal the crown from the Tortoise as the highest DPM tank in the game. Now, one thing that's great about the vehicle, and also I'd like to clarify that all of the statistics that I'm talking about right now are leaked from the super test, and they're completely subject to change. You should take all of these statistics with a pinch of salt, but they also kind of make sense in a way. It's not like they're completely fabricated. Now, one thing that they're doing with the Badger is they're giving it higher alpha 480 alpha damage on its armor-piercing rounds, way better than the 400 on the Tortoise's armor-piercing rounds, and its Hesh is now 620 instead of 515, and that makes its Hesh DPM 4,592. We're talking about killing multiple mouse per minute here, or should I say 1.5 mouse. But when you get like a gun rammer on, vents, brothers in arms, crew skills, if you want to use pudding in tea as well, it's really going to start to push it up, right? So immediately, DPM advantage. Next up, penetration advantage. 272 instead of 259 on its standard rounds, and 130 instead of 120 on its Hesh rounds. Those are some pretty good Hesh rounds, I might say, with 620 alpha. It'd be very nice to just hope the tank can carry a lot of ammunition so it's flexible enough to be able to use it, whatever situation you need. Now, of course, alpha damage has gone up, DPM has practically stayed the same, so the rate of fire is going to drop significantly. But one thing that I do think is that if your rate of fire gets too much, it just stops you from being able to move or angle your armor or be able to progress to fire accurate, well, to progress towards your opponent, then stop momentarily to fire again. Right? That's one of the problems if you have a high DPM tank with a very good rate of fire but low DPM. So the fact that the Badger is going to have a higher alpha damage than the Tortoise, but the same DPM means that it's just going to have to fire less, but still do as much damage in the long run and more damage with the initial hit. Win-win, right? Now, one thing that's good about the Badger as well, the accuracy, slightly better than the Tortoise, and it's also very flexible. Its gun traverse is 15 degrees to the left, 15 degrees to the right, depression 10 degrees down, great stuff for a tier 10 TD, and 20 degrees of elevation as well. Its health points, slightly more, 2,100 instead of 2,000 on the Tortoise. It's a little lighter at 65 tons, and it makes its power to weight ratio much better at 14.62. That's 40% better than on the Tortoise, so it should be able to make its way up slope. But this is one of the key features of the Badger compared to the Tortoise, and that is that it's able to go at 30 kilometers an hour forwards and 12 backwards, currently instead of 20 forwards and 10 backwards, and that was one of the worst things about the Tortoise, right? Just completely limited with regards to its top speed limit. Some vehicles were able to go backwards faster than the Tortoise could go forwards, and I'm not just talking about Swedish tanks, right? So apart from that, the traverse speed, pretty much identical to the Tortoise, should be a big weakness of the Badger. But one thing I'd like to highlight is even though the power to weight is good, the ground resistances are a lot worse than the Tortoise. So more or less, it's going to be about as mobile as the Tortoise, but just not limited to the top speed. But then, hopefully, we're going to see that the armor on the tank is significantly better. But that's going to be all subject to change. We'll have to see if it's got weak points on the top. You know, everybody knows about this machine gun port that's up here on the Tortoise that everybody just shoots and penetrates all the time. I guess it's a balancing mechanic of the tank. And I wonder if Wargaming are going to be able to remove that from the Badger. And then the Badger will kind of be like a T110E3 that I guess sacrifices alpha to be able to gain DPM. I have to see what else happens. Now, when are we going to see what happens, you might say? Well, obviously when the 921 test server is released. And it looks like that is going to happen next Thursday on the 16th of November. But again, leaking websites have been saying this. No confirmation that it's actually going to happen. And that suggests, well, that leads me on to my next point. How long do I have to unlock the FV215b and purchase it, you might be asking? Well, I think that means that the second test will come 2 weeks after. That's going to be the 30th of November. And so that means that my best guess at when 921 is going to come out, and I really think that Wargaming would want to push it out for the holiday period for Europe and for America as well, right? And I think that they're going to try and release it around the 13th or the 20th of December. I really can't imagine them releasing it after Christmas. That would be a real mistake by them if they were to miss the Christmas kind of holiday period for their audience, and also to be able to gain a new audience. And goodbye, Tiger 2. Yep. Got him indeed. So that means that even if they release it on the 13th of December, that you're still going to have a month from the release of this video, which will be later today, to be able to get your hands on this tank. And if they release it on the 20th, well, you just got some bonus time as well to be able to get it. Now, one thing I would like to highlight is the grind up to the FV215b 183 is pretty brutal. And also, goodbye, Fosh. Also, one thing I'd like to mention is that a lot of people try to do these mission marathons. And they try to do these grinding for the vehicles before they're removed. And it can really take a toll on your enjoyment of World of Tanks. So one of my biggest recommendations is, look, Sure, this is an iconic tank. Sure, you want to get your hands on it, but don't let it ruin your life. It's just a tank in a game, and I'd say the FV215 Stage 2 is probably just as good, if not better, than this tank now, and it can carry way more ammunition, so you don't get into these scenarios like Gord Young-un is going to be, where he's got a single shell left, and if you were in a pressure situation, then maybe, and if you didn't get quite as lucky as Gord here, to be able to finish off the final tank, then it might be a problem. And so I'd just like to reiterate that while I'm trying to inform you about the FV215b 183 being removed and your opportunity to get it before it's probably gone for good, this isn't some kind of peer pressure. Really, you must be realistic with your time. Understand that this is, if you haven't even started the line, it's going to be a real big investment. You're going to have to be getting probably 20 to 30 to 40,000 experience per day, many days a week, and then you're going to have to get at least 10 million credits to be able to just purchase the Tortoise and the FV215b 183 alone, even if you do manage to get them when they're on a discount, or if you sell all of the tanks along the way. And by all means, go for it and good luck, but just don't let it jeopardize your enjoyment of what this is meant to be, a game, right? So Gord unsurprisingly picks up an ace tanker, but quite a low ace tanker, to be honest. 1,281, considering 7 kills and 12,000 damage. I guess that's because he wasn't spotting for himself, and if you're not spotting for yourself, you're not getting the credits, well, you're only getting 50% of them, you're not getting the experience, you're only getting 50% of the experience. Look how much damage he dealt at long range, 10,264. Yeah, unsurprisingly a tank sniper, and 12,262 damage overall. Picks him up a high caliber, one of the highest damage games I've ever seen in this tank. And he also gets the Faden's medal, and that is for destroying the final remaining enemy vehicle with the final shell in your tank. That's a pretty cool one to pick up, and something that I think the FV215b 183 picks up more than any vehicle in the game. Now he also manages to make a few credits here. I'm not sure if he was using some kind of booster there to be able to gain a little bit of extra that's just turned him from being in the red to being in the black, and that's because the ammunition in this tank is very expensive indeed, and it spends nearly 80,000 credits and 20,000 on consumables. Nevertheless, Gord Young-un, thank you so much for uploading your replay on the What Replays website. It was the perfect example of the FV215b 183 to showcase to the World of Tanks community, and I really hope all of you enjoyed this video, or maybe you just found it useful. If you did, give it a thumbs up, I'd really appreciate it. And considering it's Sunday, if you're watching this video as it's released, it's time for another World of Tanks Tech Tree showcase on twitch.tv/QuickyBaby, and I can think of no better line to play than towards the FV215b 183, the non-turreted British tank destroyers, so you can see if it's a line that maybe is not going to drive you insane grinding, or if you've already got it, maybe you can see me suffer or pick up a few tips and tricks along the way. And so I'm really looking forward to seeing as many of you as possible right now on twitch.tv/QuickyBaby, and good luck if you're trying to get the FV215b 183. Hope it's not too painful. And as always, thank you so much for watching. You've been epic, and hopefully I'll see you soon.